Yes, that sounds positive.
There you go,
Dan, how are
Sam.
you, mate?
Thanks.
How
Um,
are you?
yeah, good. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was trying. It's my first time doing this as well, so I was pressing the button and it wouldn't let me do it.
Not a
Got
problem,
there.
mate. Not a problem. I was just saying it's only my second Instagram live, my first as a host. So I was just prepping the audience just in case there was any hiccups between us. But we seem to be all good to go. I was just on your behalf. I hope you don't mind, but I was just giving us a little bit of background information about you, just talking about your role as the head of S&C on the European Tour. But if you'd like to talk a little bit about what you do there and bring the guys up to speed, then that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. So for those who don't know, I've got a few roles in golf so I do a bit of private stuff, but like my main consultancy roles are with England Golf and the European Tour. So with England Golf, I'm the lead for sports science and medicine. So as part of that, I deliver to basically the boys, the girls, the men and the women's national squads. And then I oversee, we've got 10 regional hubs across the country. And inside of each of those regional hubs, we've got a boys squad and a girls squad, both under 16s and under 18s. And we've got 10 awesome S&C coaches that work in each of those hubs. So I basically support them to do their job at regional level as well. So in total, between national and regional players, we're looking at maybe like 200, 210 athletes from a whole age spectrum. And then a lot of the guys want to then go pro, obviously. So then
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to be able to work on the European Tour where I head up the S&C service. So up until a few years ago, there wasn't an S&C service. They used to come for physio, and the physios were starting to give them more S&C advice as it became more popular. And then I went in and basically set up a proper S&C service now. So we've got, in normal times, 4 S&C coaches that travel to Challenge Tour, Main Tour, and now Legends Tour. And we cover about 35 to 40 events per year across those different tours. And I'm just starting up with the LET as well. So if there are any
Wow.
LET players on here, we'll be doing stuff hopefully over the next year. So we're going to start off with some webinars, give some education to those guys and start some research with the plan of building an S&C service with the LET at some point as well. So yeah, kind of work across the whole spectrum, which is great fun. Like from a 16-year-old England player who's kind of aspiring pro right through to they get in the program, then they move inside with the LET or the European Tour, and we can see them the whole way through. So really lucky.
Nice, mate. That is some serious roles you've got going on there.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like I say, it's just great to work across the whole load. Like we can work with the 16-year-old, we can work with them as they go into an England program. We work with them on Challenge Tour, then they go on to Main Tour. Then, in theory, I've not been there long enough, but I might see them at Legends Tour at some point as well. So
could well do, especially if they're on board with the strength training and the longevity side of the longevity benefits of it. They could well be on the seniors and the Legends Tour.
Yeah.
What's it? Sorry, do you work with amateur golfers at all? It's in like handicap players like myself, like sort of single figures and above that, really.
Do you know what? I haven't been doing it much. So over the last not very long, I've started working with more players privately. Like before, it was always my consultancy, my academic stuff, but I've left academia now and I'm just doing full-on consultancy. So I'm starting to work with a few more people like that. And I've actually had a couple of calls today with guys who are like, they want to take the game seriously. They're, kind of low handicap players in their 50s. And giving them advice was really good fun because it's like different. Like for the last 5 years, I've probably exclusively worked with professionals or aspiring professionals. So yeah, it's interesting, different.
How does the advice differ from a 50-year-old amateur to a pro, for example? Is there much in it?
Probably not, actually. I think I think it's up to the player to challenge me and make me work for my money. You probably find the same thing, right? Like it doesn't really matter how good they are as a golfer. It matters how interested they are in getting better in my world.
Yes.
And it's not always the best player that pushes you the hardest. So yeah, I just like working with people who want to be better, really.
That's a great attitude. I love that. And what's it been like working on if we just of the many roles that you do, if we just hone into the European Tour, what's it been like working on a tour in its current climate with all the COVID restrictions and stuff like that?
Yeah, so very different. So I've basically not been away for a year now, which is really strange.
Mm.
Because of the restrictions on the bubble, they've kept it really small. So they've had like a couple of physios at most events, and that's been pretty much it. And they've turned the gym into like a lab essentially. So that's been doing COVID testing. So we've been supporting some players distance remotely, but really the S&C service has been put on hold a little bit in kind of the face-to-face end of things. But we're actually planning on getting to our first face-to-face tournament in nearly a year, starting in May. So is the British in May will be the first one back.
What's that? The British Masters, is it?
Yeah, so we're really excited about that.
Yeah,
That'll be our first chance back, and we're hoping to get back online with Challenge Tour, Main Tour, and Legends Tour this year. So everyone's really excited.
Nice, man. Yeah, I bet a year off is a long time. Well, not a year off, but a year away from travel and stuff like that.
It's weird. Like, I'm sure you're the same, and other people on this call are the same. Like, I've just missed coaching people face to face.
Yeah.
It's great chatting to people, and you can support them really well remotely. But there's something about the human interaction of the job, isn't there?
Yeah, I agree. I think I've been missing that more over the past sort of month or so. I've adapted to online training, and I've adapted to the remote sessions on Zoom and stuff like that. But yeah, there is something about that in-person interaction that it can't be topped, can it?
No. Yeah, definitely.
No. Exactly that. So what would typical sort of day in the life of a pro golfer, in the time leading up from like waking up to getting to their tee time, or getting up to warming up to hitting balls before their tee time, what would that look like?
From our side of things, I guess there isn't probably a straight answer to it. Like, one of the things I really like about golf, and it being such an individual sport, is that like the players manage themselves wildly differently.
Yeah.
You know, some players will value being in bed for as long as possible if they've got an early tee time.
Yeah.
Other players will be out, like, without doubt 3 hours before, no matter how early the tee time. And the length of time that they spend in different phases of that preparation is all wildly different. So like, some players will get up 3 hours before, have breakfast, come over, do like a really extensive warm-up, maybe even have a workout before they go out on the course, then depending on the tee time, practice for a certain period of time, and then go out and play. Whereas other players will try not to train before the tournament starts because they're not used to it, you know, like in the morning, or they'll have a small warm-up, or they'll maybe have a small breakfast or miss breakfast and just have something when they get to get on site. So everyone's day looks really quite different depending on how they manage themselves. And I think when you work with players, that's like one of the big things that you have to consider. It's like how I think sometimes people try and put their views onto someone else, and they say, this is how you should do it, here's the textbook approach. But actually, I think one of the real like skills of the job is understanding how the player currently operates, what works for them, and then trying to fit your advice around their circumstances, because they know themselves better than we know them.
That's great. That's really refreshing to hear as well.
Yeah, sorry, it's a bit like, it's not a straight one. Like, people probably like to hear like you do this and then you go perform and you play your best, but
yeah, we deep down we all know it's not like that really, though. Despite that crave for the magic pill, we all know the reality.
Yeah, totally.
So let's delve into a little bit then. Let's tap into some knowledge. I've written down a few questions here. As I say, I was fortunate enough to watch you present your recent webinar on hitting the ball further, and quite a simple question, Dan. Really, why should golfers be lifting weights? Why should golfers be prioritizing their strength training, in your opinion?
Yes, that's a really good question, and I think it's something that sometimes is flipped the wrong way around. So from our perspective on tour, we've developed this probability of impact, performance impact model, which sounds pretty swanky, but it's really just like trying to understand what you're most likely to affect and what you're maybe least likely to affect. And we kind of firmly believe that the most probable impact from lifting weights is reduced injury risk, more basically you're more available to play and you're more ready to play more often. So you don't get injured, you don't get sick. If you do get sick, you bounce back quicker. You can tolerate the demands of travel, the lifestyle. You can play for years and years and years and still enjoy the game and go and compete at Legends Tour and win money there as well. So for me, like, the #1 reason is longevity. And golf is one of those sports that you can play from, 2 or 3 years old to 102 or 103 years old. And I think it's important that we support people to do that. Second to that is distance. So we're really confident that strength training will reduce injury risk and do all the great stuff I just said. We're fairly confident that for most players who come to see us, we can help them hit the ball a bit further. How much further depends on their background and their training history and stuff. But, it's rare that we can't help them get a bit further. And then after that, it's the transfer to technical ability. So the ability for a player to swing the club better.
Yeah.
And I think for us, it happens, but it's just much harder to affect. So for me, it's not sexy, but the biggest selling point is play more golf, be injured less.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And it was refreshing to hear the flip in that the improvements in technical ability isn't so much. And now I've certainly been guilty of suggesting that work in the gym will improve your technique. I hold my hands up to that, but certainly the longevity is my most important thing when working with clients. So again, it's good to hear coming from someone like yourself, and then the club head speed is a secondary to that. And that longevity, I think, it just doesn't, I don't know why it doesn't get spoken of that much or appreciated that much, because I mean, you're dealing with pros and their purpose is to extend their career as much as possible. But on the same side of things, the amateur golfer who wants to get better and reduce their handicap, they're obviously going to benefit from more playing time and a reduced injury risk as well, aren't they? So it's I think it's hugely important that us as coaches bang that drum about the importance of staying fit, staying healthy, being ready to play at any time. So that's
yeah, it's a global benefit. It affects all golfers, doesn't it? You don't have to be an elite player on the tour to benefit from that one.
No.
And I think with the technical ability one, you can sometimes affect it. It's just, I think sometimes it's the go-to, and it's easy to fall into the trap because, and it's no one's fault, but obviously the golf coach is interested in technique, so they want that out of you potentially. The player's interested in technique and they're obsessing about it, so they might want that out of you. And also you desperately want to show them that you can help them, so you want to affect that thing because it has direct impact.
Yes.
And so I think like everyone's bias is towards it through no fault of anybody's. It's less likely to be effective. Which isn't to say you shouldn't chase it. You should do the hard work and try and do things that are challenging. It's just, I think having realistic expectations around it is important.
Yeah. But would you agree that you can, I mean, a result on the golf course, what is, for me and the amateur golfer, that would constitute a cut in handicap, right? And can you have your handicap cut without improving your technique as a golfer? You probably could, couldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, like if you ignore the like technique, obviously changes to hit the ball further, but we're kind of looking more at like the speeds of different segments and stuff. But if you're looking at technique as in like the shapes that you create in the golf swing, yeah, I mean, like if you hit it further, but that doesn't change, and you play well and your strategy is really good and you do all.
Just cut out a little bit there, mate.
No. You still got me? I
can still hear you. It's just blurring a little.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, come back in.
That's it, mate. That's it. Yeah, good stuff. So what? How does on the pro circuit? How does this is a fascinating subject because I know it was in one of your slides, but for the guys watching, how does an increase in club head speed benefit the golfer in terms of what do those extra yards mean? Why are they wanting to hit the golf ball further right now?
Yeah, so if we're talking about the pros, it's got to be cash, hasn't it? So for us, like the best thing, I think I posted the infographic on my Instagram page if like people haven't seen it, but the the difference in prize money between, I think it was like on average around 260 yards up to say 3 to 310 yards is about €1 million. So like, you know, that's the reason, isn't it? And an extra €1 million, increase it by 40, 50 yards.
Yeah.
And then for like the average player, you know, something I spoke about was that sort of 3 to 4 mile an hour difference in club speed is about 10 yards, and 10 yards is changing a club selection on a second shot. So
Yeah,
it actually has like a meaningful benefit to your game.
it really does. It really does. And it's a lot of fun as well. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, you get to look like Bryson.
Exactly. What are they? I don't know. Do you get to watch a lot of the golf?
Not a huge amount, no. The times I do watch golf are more with like the England players when we go to camps. Then they come in the gym and we do our gym sessions. But when they go out and play, I walk the course with them and chat to them and stuff. But
yeah, I was just going to touch on Bryson just for a little bit there. I know he's flavour of the month, and he's doing huge things for the world of strength training and golf right now. He's got a lot to thank him for. But I've noticed listening to the commentary over the last couple of weeks, I think I've picked up on a real shift towards favouring him and what he's doing now. Whereas I'm back when he won the US Open and he burst onto the scene. I felt they was quite critical of what he was doing, and they was trying to bring him down with the commentary and stuff like that. But I noticed over the last couple of weeks, for whatever reason, they have been banging the Bryson drum for sure. So and that's good to see. So I mean, something I speak about with Bryson is that something that he's doing is shining a spotlight on strength training. And if we was to even look outside of golf, the benefits of strength training are huge for the individual as well. So I love Bryson for what he's doing.
Yeah, it's always good when something gets sometimes we speak about it a lot with the tour stuff. Like sometimes you just need something good to happen by chance or otherwise, right? Like we've been banging the lift weights drum for like 10 years at England Golf, and I think sometimes you just need the right person to win and everyone gets excited about it, and you're like, I've been talking about this for 9 years and no one listens, but then he goes and wins something and now everyone's willing to listen, and that's like a good thing. That's not a bad thing, because then suddenly you have a platform. Exactly
that. It was quite interesting. I was trying to do a bit of research on Justin Thomas's fitness work, and back in like 2017 there was a headline to say that he put on 15 to 20 pounds to enhance his physique and get all the stability and make sure that he was ready to show up to golf tournaments. That's back in 2017, and it's still only really getting talked about now.
Yeah.
And okay, so where are we then? So we just touched on that, in like increasing club head speed is a absolute cash cow for the pros, hugely beneficial for the amateurs looking to get their handicap cut, because is it 3 to 4 miles per hour club head speed is 10 yards? Is that right? Give or take?
Yeah, and that's a different club.
And that's a different club into the green. So you're going to be shooting lower scores there, or at least if you've got your accuracy right, then you've got better chances. So what are the benefits of a golfer getting bigger?
Yeah, so bigger is like quite multifaceted, but I think in general, it's probably going to help reduce your injury risk. You know, you've got a larger amount of muscle to dissipate the force, haven't you? Which is always going to be a good thing. There's obviously the associated changes in strength as well, which are going to be beneficial as well. It changes your center of mass, which has an impact on your moment of inertia, and therefore improves your actual club speed just by increasing mass. Like even if whether it's good mass or bad mass, just mass will improve your club speed. And then I think there was a fourth one on my slide, but it's slipped me now. But there is another reason. It's the anchoring effect. That was it. So basically, when you're heavier, it gives you more stability because it anchors you to the floor.
Yeah.
So you know, like if you watch kids swinging golf clubs and their body's being thrown around by the club a little bit, they don't have control of it. You know, just by weighing more, you anchor yourself, and you're less likely to be thrown off by the mass of the club sort of shifting you around.
It's all pretty positive, and it makes a lot of sense. What would you say to a golfer worried about losing some flexibility after trying to get a bit bigger?
Yeah, I think I mean, if you train well, that won't happen pretty much.
Yeah.
Like if you train well, then your flexibility will stay the same or improve.
Yeah.
But also I think flexibility is for the most part overrated in golf anyway. Like you need to be flexible enough to perform your skill. And obviously if flexibility is a barrier to you swinging the golf club how you want it, it's a problem. But you know, like chasing like a bit of extra hamstring length when the hamstrings aren't impacting your golf swing is just a bit of a waste of time.
That's interesting. That's good to know. I'm just curious, cautious of time, mate, because I know you've got about half an hour or about 5 minutes left.
No, that's cool. Like I said, if we overrun a bit, it's fine. We started a bit late anyway. I've just got to prepare my talk for tomorrow for Altis, but that's fine. I've done most of it, to be fair. I've got
a question coming in, but just for anybody watching, to help us get some eyes on this video and spread the word to the golfing community, if you could whack us a little like or throw in a comment if you've got a question or anything, that would be fantastic. If you're watching this on a replay, just whack in the hashtag replay in the comments, and that will just help us get a few more eyes on this video. That would be amazing. Thank you. Question come in from Mike. Have you had any light bulb moments in your careers about strength training and golf, and any client in particular that's had amazing results? You probably don't want to, if there's a name.
No, that's cool. So it's a great question, actually. So, and the answer is a massive yes. So my background wasn't as a strength and conditioning coach. My background was as a physio. So I qualified as a physio, you know, a number of years ago. And I didn't have any interest, or like I didn't intentionally fall into golf. Like I was sampling lots of sports. I did stuff in cycling, I did stuff in lacrosse, I did stuff in football, I did stuff track and field, and then I did some stuff in golf, and golf just ended up sticking. And I got a job in golf as a physio, and quickly realized that when they said physio, they meant strength and conditioning coach. And as I kind of educated myself on it, I realized that because of like TPI and guys like Ramsey, who's obviously a physio, Greg Rose from TPI is obviously a chiropractor, there was this kind of medical model on golf S&C, and therefore I think lots of people asked physios to do the job. And I had a sports science degree and a physio masters, and basically that meant I was lucky enough to realize I didn't know enough to do the job properly. So first off, I started applying all my physio stuff to it, and I kind of went down that rabbit hole of, you know, like too specific, and I did my TPI level 1 as well, to my shame now. And then I started surrounding myself with lots of other good strength coaches, both within and outside of the sport, just in my other roles. And I quickly started to realize, like I said, there was this big knowledge gap. And then I started learning more about S&C. I started shadowing lots of S&C coaches. I started reading a lot. I did my PhD in strength and conditioning and all that. And so there wasn't like this one moment, but like if you look at my early work, and then if you look at my work, even like 1 or 2 years into golf, like it's polar opposite. It's completely different. And I was just really lucky to have some great mentors as well who helped me make that transition.
You say lucky, which may be so, but also to have that humbleness and willingness to learn and appreciate that I'm maybe not out of my depth, that would be wrong to say, but I've got stuff to learn here, and to really immerse yourself in that information is such a credit to you and the work that you've done. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing as well, isn't it? It's that ability to critically evaluate yourself. I think so many people in a whole set of industries in sport, they kind of throw stones at other people and they say, oh, they're rubbish, and they don't always look at their own practice with the same critical eye they look at others. And I think actually it's something that's really important the more people could do, which is just look at themselves in the same way that they might look at other people's practice, because inevitably you'll get better.
Yeah, exactly right. That's so good. A question from Tegan. This is a good question. How best do you balance rest days versus training days and playing days? I think there's more research to come out to suggest that there's golfers tend to work out quite a lot on the same day as their playing days. Would that be right? Yeah, so I'm supervising a PhD student who's looking into that at the moment, and we've been collecting lots of data on what golfers do and questioning. So we've done some questionnaires on the tour. We've done some observational studies, watching what the players are doing at the Open,
Championship a couple of years back, that sort of thing. And there's also research outside of golf. Like, I think a lot of time people just look at golf research and they miss the big picture, which is there's tons of physiology research, there's tons of research on the sports that can kind of guide us to the answers. But I think in short, I guess, to try and answer the question, we should be aiming for like a minimal effective dose of strength training, because the golfer's job is to be really good at golf, and golf takes loads of time. So you want the players to train twice a week if they can get away with it. And if they can't, it's 3 times a week. And if they can't, it's 4. But like, the smallest number is the best number. And you want them to train for half an hour, not an hour. But if they have to, they do an hour, but you want to avoid an hour and a half, and so on. So like, finding the minimum dose is important. And I think for me, it's like, we've found that usually between 2 and 3 days a week is plenty. And sessions around 30 minutes to an hour is plenty. So then you just distribute those across the week. So maybe like a Monday, Wednesday and Saturday. And then if they train at tournaments, because like Saturday's tournament day, they just reduce the volume, and they're fine. They still get the heavy stuff in.
Would that make a difference on, this is just one from me, mate, but if they've got a morning tee time and was to work out afterwards as opposed to working out before their tee time, is there any research out there to suggest any differences between those two?
Not necessarily. So the research on priming, which is this concept, is like, priming is basically training and then expecting a benefit from that training over the next several hours. So it's not an immediate benefit like 10 minutes later, and that's like a post-activation potentiation effect, PAP effect. Like a priming effect is slightly longer than that. And the research kind of shows that there's quite a big spectrum of time where that can take an effect. So it could be like 6 hours, it could be 4 hours, it could be 48 hours. So if you had a tee time, say tomorrow morning, you could have trained this afternoon, or you could have trained, or sorry, tomorrow afternoon, better example. You had a tee time tomorrow afternoon, you could train this afternoon, or you could train tomorrow morning. And I think that's largely like personal preference. What I would say though, from experience, is that the better your training background, the more you can get away with. So, you know, more highly trained people tend to train a bit closer to the tournaments or the tee time. Yeah,
that's interesting. And any main differences between training male and female golfers?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So basically, from a research perspective, there's basically nothing on female golfers, which is really disappointing. Wow. So I put out one paper which was with the women's and the girls and the boys squads. So that had kind of both, but on the whole, there's virtually nothing. It's really disappointing. So it's one of the main things that we're planning to do with the Ladies European Tour. We're planning to do research from both strength and conditioning perspective, but also like a women's health and performance perspective, and try and give sort of better insights into that. And the problem with women's health and performance research as well is it's not just lacking in golf, it's kind of like lacking across a whole spectrum of sport, and we don't understand how to optimize women's training as much as we should. So I'm hoping that will improve. There is some really good work going on at the moment. Like, anyone who's interested should follow Period of the Period, which is run by someone called Kelly McNulty, who's doing a PhD in women's health and performance. She's mainly looking at menstrual cycle and health and performance, but Period of the Period does loads of women's health stuff, so definitely follow that. And our plans for the LET over the next sort of year is to look at sort of strength and explosive strength characteristics of the female golfers and see how they compare to the males. From the data we've got from England, it seems like body mass is even more important for female golfers. But I would imagine there might be some differences in the importance of strength and explosive strength. And we're also going to do some stuff looking at the menstrual cycle and how that might affect or have an impact on performance and timing of training and that kind of thing. There is some research to show that like different phases of the menstrual cycle are likely to elicit better training adaptations, or it might be harder to recover, or injury rates might be higher. And that's only one facet. Like there's loads of different topics in women's health performance. You know, like there's nothing on breast mechanics and golf, for example, which is obviously an important topic for females as well. And again, there's just a whole range. I could go on about it for a while, but basically more research needs to be done.
Yeah.
Outside of that, the basic principles are the same in terms of getting stronger and more explosive and stuff. I often enjoy working with the females more. They're kind of more diligent a lot of the time. They really listen. They take notes. They take it really seriously. So I love working with the women's and the girls squads. They're some of my favourite people to work with.
That's the same in training general populations as well, Dan. Exactly the same. They engross themselves in the information far more so than guys do, for sure. Sure. And ladies golf is on the rise big time, isn't it? I think so. And stuff like that is only going to continue to help it grow even further.
Yeah, definitely. Hope so.
Love it. Mate, I'm very conscious of time. So I just want to give you an opportunity. This has been so cool. I've loved every second of it. You're working on something right now called the Golf Performance Network. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So basically what it is two of my colleagues, I think Simon's just logged in now actually, who's one of them, Simon Brearley and Jack Wells, have just started up Golf Performance Network, which pretty much aims to improve the education around sports science and medicine for practitioners. So it might be golf coaches, trainers, physios, doctors, a whole range of people. And we're just going to run some courses initially and also have a bit of a network set up where you're part of a community, and just support everyone's kind of education around golf and sports science and medicine, with a bit more of a kind of elite angle, which isn't to say like elitist. I think it's still appropriate for most golfers, but more of like a performance mindset as opposed to a medical mindset. So it will be quite different from things like TPI. Also, Jack, Simon and I, we publish a lot, and relatively, and we do a lot of research, and we're very evidence-based practitioners. So the idea is to kind of share research and practice kind of amalgamated together, rather than just stuff that we've experienced but maybe can't back up with science.
When you say elitist, do you mean the elite player?
Yeah, elitist might be the wrong word, but what I mean is like taking a performance angle on it as opposed to a medical model type angle. I think if you look at kind of more traditional screenings and things that have been done in golf, they've definitely come from like a medical model of how you've worked with a patient. Sure. So what you do is you take my orthopedic or musculoskeletal assessment I would do when someone's injured and comes to see me in clinic, and I've applied that to an athlete population, as opposed to taking like a performance angle, which is essentially how S&C coaches work with athletes in other sports. Right. Or not just S&C coaches, we're also going to be covering like medical topics and stuff as well. But just more performance orientated, more science driven.
Yeah, that's class. And obviously that will funnel down to, well, depending on how you take the information, but I'm supposing that's going to funnel down to the amateur golfer as well, the club.
Yeah, without doubt. Like I said, I was working with a couple of guys in their 50s today, and I was writing programs for them, and I was using exactly the same principles.
Yeah. It's easily done. Mate, that's been so good. That's been so good. I've really, thank you so much for giving us a bit of your time. We've had some great questions, some real good thumbs up coming in through. Something about
Oh, go on. I was going to say, just before we finish, there's, because it sounds like maybe we're wrapping up, but the one question we haven't answered, I think, was from Stephen. So I just thought it'd be worth touching on that, which was any tips for anyone who wants to start out in a career in S&C, is gaining a degree, what's the best route? I think the first thing around S&C is it's like a hugely competitive industry. So you have to be prepared to work hard, and you have to also acknowledge that you're taking a bit of a gamble. So it's going to be hard to get in. There's going to be a lot of graft, and there might be some sort of low paid starter jobs and that kind of thing. So I think kind of firstly, really understand what you're getting yourself in for, I think would be first bit of advice. And then outside of that, I think just spend a lot of time with good people if you can. Like find people who will have you shadow them or do some mentorship, or take some like weekend work at an academy football club, low paid or something, and just try and get lots of experience and learn from good people. I think quite often people can be so focused on ticking the academic boxes, like get a degree, get a master's degree in S&C, get my UKSCA accreditation, which by the way you totally need. You need all that stuff, but they tick all the boxes and maybe forget that actually the most important thing is that they're a really good coach. And that's what will take you from the entry job to being in the better jobs, or improve your chance, is actually by being really good at your job. And doing the degree won't necessarily just automatically make you good at your job. So I think it's just committing to long-term self-development as well as ticking the boxes.
That is an absolute dude of an answer, mate. I love that. I hope Stephen appreciates that advice. I certainly did. The stuff with the women's, the research around the women's menstrual cycle and stuff like that. Are you able to ping me a link to any of those papers?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say the best thing to do, rather than individual papers, would be just to follow Period of the Period, which is on Instagram, so @period_of_the_period. Cool. And it's the same on Twitter as well. I'd also follow @Kelly McNulty. I think that's her handle, something as simple as that. And Period of the Period also has a podcast, and they're only on their second episode at the moment. But she's basically getting all the women's health and performance researchers to come in and do interviews about their research. So I think she did her own one as the introductory, and I think they just had Kirsty Sale in, who's like a pretty big researcher in that area. So if you listen to the podcast, like that will kind of cover all the bases for you, and then you can kind of explore the papers from there. So yeah, @Period of the Period is like well worth following.
Incredible. One last one before we go. Be very quick. Tiger Woods, are we going to see him on the PGA Tour again?
Oh, no idea.
We won't go there. We won't go there. We'll save that one for next time.
Yeah.
Dan, you're an absolute gent, mate. Thank you so much for your time. I look forward to the Golf Performance Network, and we'll speak soon, pal.
Awesome. Thanks. Nice to catch up.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.